Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Jabbering Jake Podcast, episode 11. I am on the road again, visiting the Northeast, visiting my roots again, and it is definitely colder than my new home that I have left behind for these next couple weeks. But I have not frozen to death yet. That is the good news. It's been getting down to like the 50s in the evenings down in Alabama, and it's been getting into the 30s and sometimes 20s up here. So definitely a lot colder. Fall is definitely here. I know it's probably boring to hear me talk about it for two episodes in a row now, I'm realizing, but winter is a coming. So yeah, I'll be up in the northeast of the country visiting friends and old classmates while I'm around, just to visit some people, hang out with some friends up here. So I'm in the beginning of that journey right now, staying at a friend's house that was kind enough to let me stay here. And so I'm in a different setup, different recording environment from where I usually am. I have more space to stretch out my legs. But despite all that, I still seem to struggle to find the optimal placement of my computer and microphone and all that for these episodes, to place the microphone in a spot that doesn't sort of partially obscure the screen, and to place my mixing board somewhere that isn't in the way of me operating my computer. But it's all good. We still make it happen. We still record this podcast. And now you've gotten a little technical glance behind the scenes. So, on the last episode, I did make mention that I wanted to talk about the Harry Potter movies because my brother and I have been watching those again recently. And of course, the longer I've gone on delaying it, the worse my memory is about what happened. And of course, that was one of the few things that if I think about wanting to talk about it on the podcast, I usually write down notes as I notice them watching the movies. For example, in this case, I just wrote, want to talk about the Harry Potter movies. So hopefully I will remember to hit a decent amount of the points that I want to hit. If not, it's going to be a fun, random cluster of funny things I noticed rewatching the Harry Potter movies, as I've done recently with my brother. Well, we actually technically haven't gotten through all of them. We've only gotten through like half so far. So it'll be at least another couple weeks before we get back to that because he did not come up north with me. He's still back home. But yeah, essentially, my brother one day had come up to me and said, "Hey, want to rewatch the Harry Potter movies with me?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." And the funny thing is, I mean, I've definitely sort of partially rewatched some of the Harry Potter movies before, but never necessarily actually properly sat down and started to rewatch all of the movies. And it's an obvious point to most people. It's kind of an Captain Obvious type thing to say. But when you go and rewatch movies that you watched as a kid, because even toward the later Harry Potter movies, I was still a decent bit younger than I am now, uh, by my perspective anyway. Uh, and of course, when you watch those movies as a kid, especially the earlier movies, because we are talking about sort of the first half of them, because that's what I've rewatched so far. There's a lot of things in there that you definitely miss or kind of go over your head as a kid. Some subtle hints at things, and of course, I'm going to make a complete ass out of myself because that's one of the things that I didn't remember to write down. But it's kind of like the way that Disney or the kids' movies maybe hide little innuendo here and there that the parents will pick up on, but the kids won't. And of course, I mean, Harry Potter, the movies are a little different because it's not necessarily like it can be entertaining for adults even without those necessarily. But if I remember some while I'm talking about the movies, I'll definitely be sure to point them out. But I will point out that there were just so many things that the Hogwarts staff, the teachers, did that were so whack that placed so many students in danger. And, well, is it any wonder with that happening that students ended up getting hurt or almost killed? I mean, things like the dungeon or some of the forbidden wings in Hogwarts. Like in the first movie, there's a troll that gets into the school and it's just roaming around the dungeons and is able to get to like the girls' bathroom where Hermione is, and Harry and Ron go in to help and they end up running into the troll. Now I get it that you know the evil teacher there let the troll in, but it seems like a problem when you have a school where a dangerous creature like a troll can sneak in so easily to this, or can get into the school. First of all, what kind of school has a dungeon in it? That's a little bit interesting. And the fact that a troll was able to get into the dungeon and then somehow get from the dungeon to the girls' bathroom, like it seems like it is way too easy for that to happen. And none of the teachers had noticed when Harry and Ron, none of the prefects noticed when they ran off to go to the girls' bathroom to confront the troll, which could have resulted in 3 different student deaths. It's like, you think you might do a better job of noticing people or have more staff being able to watch students wandering off. It seemed like every house had only one prefect and they were walking at the front of the group of the whole house. Of course you're going to not notice if somebody just kind of slips off. But the other thing is, in all those movies, there's like a different defense against the dark arts teacher. Like there wasn't any red flags there. Like, man, we're going through all these teachers because they're either like really shady, really, really bad, or something happens to them. I mean, how many of those defense against the dark arts teachers turned out to be kind of sketchy or bad in some ways? I mean, movie 1, bad dude, literally was like a host for Lord Voldemort, the big bad guy of the series. Second movie, similar sort of thing, wasn't quite as evil, but he was basically this like celebrity wizard that had supposedly done all these things, and it was all a lie, and he erased people's memories so he could take credit. Not necessarily dangerous per se, but well, no, I get he was pretty dangerous because like if he had succeeded when they got into the Chamber of Secrets, Harry and Ron and Ron's younger sister Ginny would have all died because he would have wiped their memories and basically left them to die in the Chamber of Secrets. And then movie 3, the dude's a werewolf. I mean, he was still a good guy per se, but when you turn into a werewolf, you just kind of attack everything. So imagine you're just chilling out on the school grounds one night, there's a full moon, and one of your professors attacks and rips you to shreds. I guess that's why he ended up resigning. And then movie 4, it the guy was actually not who he said he was. He basically, the professor that was supposed to be there had gotten captured by this guy, and he was using a potion to look like him and infiltrate. And because of that, Harry got sent off to this graveyard where he ended up. They were able to end up bringing Lord Voldemort back. So they really messed up there. I mean, really makes me appreciate how safe my schools have always been growing up and going to. I mean, mind you, magical threats and trolls and dragons and stuff like that aren't really a thing in this world, so I wouldn't have had to worry about that. But I feel like if they had been a real thing, I'd like to think my schools would have done a good enough job of keeping us safe from that. But you never know. You never know until it actually happens. Also, let's not ignore the fact that in the Goblet of Fire, the whole thing around it was that it was a tournament with events in it that literally were super deadly for the participants. I mean, fighting dragons and like vicious mermaid people and having to be able to stay underwater for an hour, and then this deadly maze that could potentially corrupt you or like consume you. Imagine, imagine being a high school student and there's just this big tournament that you can participate in. That only one person from each of the participating schools gets to participate in. So it's like, wow, one person from each school. I feel like they should bump those numbers up, make bigger teams or something like that. But you get the chance to compete in these if you're one of the few lucky people that gets to do it. And there's a very possible chance that you won't survive. That really brings school spirit to another level. And speaking of school spirit, when at the beginning of that movie, The Goblet of Fire, when they were bringing in the other schools and introducing them, these schools had these really cool, showy presentations demonstrating their magic and looking all cool and stuff when they entered the hall. And then Hogwarts does their thing and they sing this really corny, cheesy song. And you could see it on the faces of the other schools like, wow, yeah, that's really cool. We came in here like, you know, doing all these cool magical tricks, creating fire and making butterflies appear and doing all these cool choreographed stunts, and these guys sing one of those corny school anthems that, I mean, let's be honest, even the people singing it was like, oh, this song is so whack, so lame. Why did the teachers make us sing this? Why is this our school anthem? We should have done some cool stuff like them. We can do magic too. Definitely, if one of the events was sending a cool message for your school, representing your school, Hogwarts would have lost that one. But that was another thing I noticed when my brother and I were watching these movies on, I can't remember if it was Amazon Prime or Hulu or whatever the heck we were watching. No, it couldn't have been Hulu because Hulu's literally the worst because they're so overprotective of their streaming rights of like, if you try and watch it on your phone and you're not at home, it's going to be like, hey, looks like you're not at home. Make sure you check in every 30 days. And, if you try and watch it on a TV at a different house, forget it. And don't get me wrong, I get why they do it because they don't want people just ripping them off and just distributing their password with everyone. But they should, I mean, if it's your account, you're logged into your account and you're on your phone somewhere away from home, like, I don't know. But anyway, not the point. Whatever site we watched it on definitely wasn't Hulu because they are very protective of their IP, and it's on my mom's account. Uh, it had some scenes in it that weren't ever in the DVDs that we watched, which, why is that a thing, by the way, that movies in their DVD release cut out some scenes from like the theatrical release or the original cut. Like I don't get that. Why take stuff out of the movie? Why not just leave it in? But the streaming site that we watched it on still had those scenes in it because there were definitely scenes where like, yeah, I definitely don't remember this scene at all. And one such scene, I can't remember if this was actually one of the ones that was missing. I think it was because there was a couple that I said, oh yeah, that wasn't in the original, and my brother was like, no, that was. But one of them was in the Goblet of Fire. Uh, Harry Potter was like out. I don't know why I'm saying his full name. Like we don't know who he is. Harry was out in like one of the courtyards on the night of this big dance that all the schools had with each other, and Professor Snape was talking to the headmaster at the like Bulgarian school that went to visit Hogwarts, and they were both Death Eaters, like bad guys at one point, and they were having a heated discussion. And I remember at one point Snape kind of was like, "Wait, what's that?" He looks over as if to be suspicious at something, and of course, I thought it was that he might have potentially sensed that Harry was there, but I made the joke while we were watching it. He's like, "Wait a minute, there's a couple of students out here after the dance, playing kissy face in secret like they shouldn't be." When of course I thought it was him just feeling like he noticed Harry was there. So he goes along to like one of these carriages that was in that little courtyard there. And sure enough, it was actually he busted a couple of students like kissing secretly in one of the carriages and deducted house points from them. I found it hilarious because of course I made that joke not realizing that that was the real thing. But of course, he was mostly also concerned about that because maybe those students were listening in on their conversation. But it's just kind of funny that that's what actually happened. So I don't mean to jump back to an earlier topic, but with that tournament that they were participating in, the other thing about it was that like innocent bystanders to the tournament that weren't even actually competing in it were put in harm's way. For the second event, where they had to go underwater for an hour and find someone that was kidnapped and being held by these mermaids. Like, these people that were captured, they didn't sign up for it, and their lives were on the line. They could have died. Could you imagine? Like, now, so let's just say the premise is quite normal that you're going to participate in the tournament and you could die. Okay, fair enough. You know what you signed up for. You didn't have to put your name in the Goblet of Fire, I guess. But imagine you're just a student at the school, and I guess you happen to have some sort of connection to the person competing. You're a friend of theirs or a family member or whatever. You had no intention of signing up, even if you could, which some of these people were too young. You had to be a certain age to compete in it. And some of these people were too young to be competitors, but not too young to be straight up just victims. Imagine you're just doing your business. You're like, nah, I'm not interested in any of that. And then you get captured and put underwater as a victim. I'm telling you, man, somebody's got to investigate these staff at these magical high schools. Something sketchy's going on. They're sacrificing students as temporarily potentially live bait. But no, it's been really fun watching the Harry Potter movies again, getting to kind of relive a little part of my childhood because they were a big part of it growing up. I always looked forward to watching the next movie as it came out, and I'm looking forward to being able to finish the rest of the movies once I get back. Of course, it's one of those things we were both kind of like delaying finishing the movies because whenever you finish a big thing like that, there's always kind of this temporary like, we finished that. Now what? I've done that with some video games that I've had before. I'm playing them and I love the heck out of them. And then I can feel like I'm getting towards the end of the game and I like stop playing it. I put it off because I just don't want it to end. Maybe life's kind of like that. You try and put it off so that it doesn't end, but I mean, there's no pausing that game. We're all in it till the end, baby. But Yeah, so we're gonna eventually finish the movies, and then it's gonna be like, crap, what next? We should finish watching the Lord of the Rings movies. That's a, a quick note about that. When I was in high school, I'd never seen the Lord of the Rings movies growing up, and there's always, those movies that everyone's like, oh, you gotta watch this, you gotta watch Star Wars, you gotta watch whatever, and I never had. But I was in high school as a prefect, and the school had this yard sale every year, and the reason I mentioned I was a prefect is because I probably wouldn't have gone to the yard sale otherwise, but each of us, volunteered for time slots to help run the thing. And while I was there with my buddies Ryan and Zave, I found a set of tapes of all three of the Lord of the Rings movies. I was like, oh, I'd never seen these movies before. I'd always meant to. I said I should get these and watch them. So I bought all three tapes. They sold it to me for $5, which was a crazy steal. Basically, like 10 plus hours of entertainment for $5. So, two hours, $1 per 2 hours, or 50 cents an hour, something like that. If you want to look at it that way. So I bought the tapes, and after our shift was done, Ryan, Zave, and I went back to the lounge in our dorm, and we just marathoned the movies, only leaving for meal breaks, and we did end up going to sleep before we finished the last movie, but that was a crazy fun experience. Those are the types of days and experiences I definitely miss. It's the type of thing you can't really do very often or at all as an adult. There's just never the time. But I later was watching those movies with my brother, and we got so close to finishing, except the third movie comes in two parts, in two tapes. And we finished the first movie, we finished the second movie, we finished the first tape of the third movie, and we never finished that second tape. So to this day, my brother and I still haven't finished that. So that's something we should finish too. Maybe after we finish Harry Potter. 'Cause, I mean, those were good movies. I really enjoyed that. I was glad I finally got a chance to watch the Lord of the Rings movies. I do love, I love my sports, and I love my physical activities like that, and I equally as much love my nerdy stuff, my fantasy, my sci-fi, which is why I've really been having fun with D&D lately. Also because I just love getting into character. I've done a lot of like theatrical acting type stuff too. Like I said, I want to dabble in some voice acting as well. So it's been fun because you get to create this character and think of a story and a motivation for them, and then you just get to get together with some buddies and just have fun and mess around. We probably talk shit and bust each other's balls playing the games as much as we also actually participate in the games. It's just fun because you get to. It's like a hangout session with some structure, or a game to it. Instead of playing a board game, you just kind of have a structured story and game you can play, but it's completely yours to do with as you want. And last week at our session, we just finished up another big leg of our adventure. At least I think we did. We beat this big bad guy in an adventure that our DM Rob had set up for us. We were fighting this undead giant guy named Grunk, and he was attacking this village, and we were tasked with saving the village people who couldn't really defend themselves much. So we got them to a safe place, and then we were fighting this guy. And I missed one of the sessions during that adventure. Apparently the party had killed him twice, but he didn't stay dead because you gotta like chop off his head, or destroy it or whatever. And so I was finally back, and it took several sessions for us to fight this guy. And it was really annoying. I mean, it was really fun how annoying he was to fight because he'd clearly learned from the previous encounters. And he would attack and then like go invisible and run away and hide, and we couldn't do anything about it. And at one point my character did something really dumb and snuck out and fell for an obvious trap. My character obviously being controlled by me, so what I'm saying is I went out and fell for the trap. Even though I kind of knew it was a trap, sometimes you're like, well, I think it's a dumb idea, but for the sake of the believability of the story, my character's going to fall for this. And it's kind of fun because, if you're watching a movie or some other work of literature like that, usually the heroes, that things are going to work out for them in the end. So the stakes can never be truly that high in most cases, but in something like D&D, there's no plot armor. My character very well could have died for the dumb decision he made, and so that kind of makes it fun because there's real consequences. But the last session, we were finally coming to the conclusion of it, and we were fighting against this guy, and both my character and I both were frustrated with this guy and his cowardly tactics. And so in character, I was talking mad shit to this guy, and we got into this verbal back and forth. My character's like, "Stop being a coward and come out and fight me." My character's like this 3 foot tall, short little halfling, which is like, I'm gonna get this wrong because I don't remember, but it's like half human, half dwarf, or half gnome, or something like that. And this guy we're fighting was like this 10-foot tall monstrosity, and my character was just talking shit to him, and this guy was cocky, laughing back. And after some time, my character did manage to successfully provoke him into attacking my character. And let me just say, I'm so glad that things worked out, because it would have been really embarrassing if my character was talking shit and then got the floor wiped with him. I mean, it would have made for good content still, but I'm just glad it worked out with the abilities and the luck of the dice rolls that I got. Because that's part of the reason why things can turn out badly for you, is because many things in Dungeons and Dragons are determined by dice rolls. So it's all in the probability and statistics of it. The dice doesn't care if you're the main character. You could roll really badly and things could end up bad for you. But they turned out alright. We managed to drop the enemy once again and suitably proceeded to defile and mangle his corpse on the ground to make sure he couldn't come back. So I apologize if you had any children listening to this podcast, because I've just talked about how we brutally destroyed this corpse after we beat the guy. But soon we're going to be starting another campaign, basically the same group plus one. I mentioned this as well in a Spelljammer thing, which is kind of a collision between sci-fi and fantasy, where magic and dragons and all that stuff exists, but there's also some sort of space travel and technology to some degree. And I finally figured out the concept for my character is this race called the Hidozi, which is like, used to be this species of primates that, in conjunction with this wizard and this elixir that this wizard mixed up, managed to steal that elixir and gain sentience. So now they're like hybrid human primate species. So that's my character, and he's an artificer, which means he basically makes magical doohickeys, and he's gonna have this cool prosthetic hand that he's going to shoot weapons from and stuff like that. And also, because of his bonuses, he has just as fast a climbing speed as he does a walking speed, which a lot of characters in D&D don't, because if you've ever gone out and tried to climb something, it's usually more difficult than just walking somewhere. So that makes sense why your movement speed climbing would be halved, but not for my character. He can climb just as easily as he can walk or run. He can manipulate things with his feet. He has very dexterous feet, which really works well for him being an artificer and a tinkerer. Because it's like, if you can build something using 4 hands instead of 2, it's probably going to be easier. And he has these wing-like structures on him, so he can glide too. So it's going to be so badass if we get into a ship battle with another pirate crew, and my guy can climb up the mast and glide over to the ship and start attacking them. Or he's really proficient with the big weapons on the side of the ship, and he can launch projectiles at him with less crew members helping. So I'm looking forward to that campaign as well. Lots of fun, nerdy stuff going on. And, speaking of fun, nerdy stuff, this game Overwatch 2 came out recently, which back when their first game, Overwatch, came out. I played tons of that game with my friends. A lot of time was put into it when I probably should have been studying in university. But it's a game made by Blizzard, the company behind games like World of Warcraft and Hearthfire and I believe StarCraft as well. But they recently released Overwatch 2, which is basically a copy and paste of Overwatch 1, which is fine. That's completely fine, and it was free, and it's free to play, which is also great. And the only problem with that is they have this battle pass system, which basically the game is free, but there's different rewards you can earn in the game that a lot of them you have to pay for, and you complete objectives and challenges in the game to get to different tiers of that battle pass. And the unfortunate part about that is it becomes a bit of a money grab thing when you have to pay to get a lot of the rewards that in the previous iteration of the game were free. And then there were just some bugs with characters being locked that shouldn't have been for us. And even when we unlocked them, they were still locked. Which eventually last night, Blizzard ended up stopping the game and they did emergency maintenance. So that brought our playtime to an end. But there was definitely some unfortunate things about it. But at the end of the day, we still had tons of fun. It's still a great game at the moment, and really recaptured what we had fun with in the first release of Overwatch. So, it was overall a good experience, and hopefully they were able to fix the issues last night, but we'll see. Anyway, we're coming up on we're past the 30-minute mark now on this episode, and since I am at a friend's house as a guest, and part of the reason I've come up was to socialize with them, I'm going to call it here and go socialize. So, until the next episode, thanks for listening. Bye.